Okay, so as I mentioned in the introduction, we have Becki Keegan on the podcast today. So Becki, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi, good. How are you?
I am very, very good, thank you. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, you've been part of the Profit team for a few years now. You've had a competitive side to your career as well, which we'll talk about a little bit. You're now looking at joining the Profit mentoring team and progressing yourself in that area. You've just bought your first house. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of good stuff going on in your life. What I'm interested to do today to start off with is find out a little bit about how you got to this point. Can you give the audience a little bit of a breakdown of your story? How did you find yourself in the fitness industry? How did you find yourself PTing with Profit? Give us all a little bit of a context as to what's got you to this point today.
Okay, so I kind of ended up with Profit a bit of an accident, really. I did a lot of traveling. I came back from Australia and I kind of was a bit like, I didn't really know what to do. So I knew I've always been into fitness, and then I saw like I could go into personal training. So my idea was to become a personal trainer and then go back over to Australia with my qualification so I could work over there. So as I did my qualification, Steve from Profit came in and spoke about Profit and said how amazing it was and blah, blah, blah. So I was a bit like, oh, that sounds good. What I'll do is I'll go and do that for a few months, get the experience. So then when I go over to Australia, I've got the experience and I'll get more likely to get a job. So I got the job and then I was like, okay, I'll do this for a couple of months and then I'll go over. And then I ended up just absolutely loving it. And I just couldn't leave. And it was probably one of the main reasons why I didn't go back over to Australia was because I just fell in love with the job. I fell in love with the people. I just loved everything about it. So it was kind of one of them that I did just fall into a little bit. Although I've always loved the fitness industry, falling into Profit was just amazing. And it was the best thing that happened. And it's kind of like fate, I guess.
Good. So talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned that you wanted to qualify as a PT and obviously your plan was to go back to Australia and do that. Talk to us about where your passion for fitness came from. Like, go back, way back when, were you involved in sport? Like what is it that you were generally interested in when it came towards fitness and stuff like that?
Well, I've always had like quite an athletic family. So when I grew up, it was just the norm to go to every single club at school, to do everything. It wasn't like a chore. It never has been. And I absolutely always loved exercise. I was always in every single club at school. Absolutely loved it. And then I kind of got through the phase when females grow a little bit older and it's not as cool to train and stop the clubs. And then I kind of did a bit of PT and I kind of dibbled in and out of it really. And then when I came back from Australia, that's when I kind of thought how much I really loved it. But before I got into Profit, I was very much like cardio, into all my circuit stuff and did all that kind of stuff. And then when I got into Profit, I started lifting weights. And that's when I just fell in love with even more the part of fitness that I didn't really realise about before. And then that's when I think in my first week of Profit, one of the guys challenged me to set a goal of doing because I was a runner, so he said, why don't you do a half marathon? And I was kind of like, no. And I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to put myself in that situation. And that's one of the biggest life goals that I carried on through the job, is because I then went to do a half marathon and I could do it. And it was kind of that self-doubt that I had. And then I did, that was my first one. And then I got into weight training. And so from that, I thought, oh, well, why can't I do a competition? So that's when I ended up going into bodybuilding, and then I have done for the past 3 years.
Yep. So let's delve into that a little bit now, because obviously we were talking just before we hit record, and you said it's been a big part of your life and your business as well. It's made up a big part of that. And we've talked about, we don't want to go too much into the actual competing itself. That's not what we're interested in, but I'd be interested to know what you learn about yourself when undertaking something like that at such a high level and being very competitive and placing in competitions and stuff like that. Like, what have you learned along that 3-year journey about yourself and about, mindset and things like that? Talk to us about that, because I think that's the stuff that applies to anyone.
Yeah, I think competing was such a huge part of my PT career, because as soon as after the 6 months I got into competing, and I don't know whether it was the competing or it's just that time in my life, but I just learned so much about myself. I learned to have some more self-belief. I learned how to be competitive. I learned discipline. I learned how to manage life with having this really regimented, strict, everything going on with my bodybuilding, but also trying to keep my business up and running and trying to make sure I'm still giving everything towards my clients, because that was still a huge part of my life. I wanted to be successful. I didn't want my business to fall on the wayside next to my competitions. So I just learned to manage all that. I learned loads about it, about myself. But then you end up learning even more after your show, because obviously it's easy to follow a plan. Well, for me, it was easy to follow a plan, to just be strict, have routine. And then when you come away from your competition, it's kind of like, oh, and then you end up learning more about like your priorities, balance. The thing that we go on to our clients about is balance, and it's not about like, so obviously I do this competing, but it's not really how I want my clients to live. So coming out of competing was actually it was more beneficial for me and my clients, because I could then learn how to balance life, learn how to eat right throughout the whole week and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about that now, because it sounds like you've got a bit of almost like a bit of a personal philosophy around that. Like what's your thought on competing now? Because I think you mentioned earlier that you're probably not going to compete again in the future. Like, talk to us about this idea of balance and stuff like that, and how your approach has now potentially changed for yourself and for anyone else that you work with.
I think because I did the competing side of it, it's allowed me to get this balance through life, though, because we always go on about educating. So we want to educate our clients to make their own decisions. And I was so educated throughout those 2 years of prep, learning everything, learning how my body responds, learning the calories and things, learning macros, that it has helped me now to eyeball a meal and know how many calories are in it. So I always say to my clients, like, understanding calories is important, because we want to be educating ourselves and to be able to make that decision, so then we can create that balance, which is what I feel like I have now. I don't track food, I don't obsess over things anymore, but like I do think sometimes it is important to be in an element of in control, to kind of lose that control again.
Yep.
I do think it's quite important, and I do explain to my clients, like, we do have to spend a time of understanding a little bit stricter, so then you can enjoy the future more.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yep. So for you then, in terms of trying to help your clients find that balance, are you almost trying to create almost like a false sense of strictness then, so that they can get a taste of that, to then experience what it's like to not be strict? How are you, because obviously your clients don't compete per se, how are you sort of helping them find that balance in the way you have, but in a slightly different format, if that makes sense?
Obviously yeah, I think mine was just so strict. So mine was literally, you eat this, that was it.
Yep.
Follow that. Whereas I'm trying to get people to understand, so this might be their calories, but help them understand what they can fit into that kind of thing. Understanding what fat or protein or carbohydrate is. So then when they make their future decisions, when they go out for dinner and stuff, they can kind of make their own educated guess, I guess.
Yep. So I think what Becky's touching on there for the listeners is that there was certainly a time in the industry where people would just give out plans to clients, wouldn't there? And the client would have no context as to what that plan meant. They don't know that it was a case of follow the plan, which, there is a time and a place for that, especially in something like what you were doing. Whereas what Becki does now is she's looking at it and going, well, clients need to be able to decide for themselves. I think what about that is you empower the clients to make decisions, as opposed to becoming someone that does it for them.
The amount of people that are like, can I have a food plan? And it doesn't work like that.
No.
And I always bang on about it being, the bigger the restriction, the bigger the binge.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're getting on stage in bikini, you don't need to be following a food plan.
Yep.
There's better. It wants to be sustainable. We want to be doing this for the rest of our life. We want to be educated.
Yeah. Good. So we're going to come back and talk about your clients a little later on, because I know that it's something you do an amazing job of. So we will come back to that. But before we jump into that, give us a little bit of an idea now about what your business looks like, because I know that over the last couple of years, you've built yourself a very successful PT business. I know you do, obviously, your in-person stuff. I've got a feeling you do some online stuff as well. Talk to us about what your business looks like and sort of how you went about building that over the last few years. Give people a bit of an insight as to what that looks like, any ups and downs and things like that.
I guess if people saw my diary now and what I did, they'd be like, "Oh, you're living the dream." And don't get me wrong, I'm doing really well. So maybe I do work 4 days a week, and I do like 6 till 1, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But that's very, very recent. And before that, I was doing 6 a.m. till 7 p.m, long days with a couple of sessions, then loads of gaps. but it's just one of them, and it just comes, and like the best knowledge is experience. So that's, the more you do, the better you're going to be. And then over time, you get in a position where you can say no to evenings, you can say no to this. And then I've just managed to be able to now get rid of all of my evenings, and I would just work morning to daytime, really. And then I've recently started picking up online clients, so that works really well. So obviously when I take time back, I still want to be giving away to people, but getting time back at the same time, because it's the best thing, isn't it, having the time. So that's what business looks like at the moment. So I work the 4 days, and I've obviously do my online coaching, and I'm in the process of doing mentorship coaching, mentorship training. So I'll be a mentor next year, which is quite exciting.
Yep. So what Becky's talking about there is in Profit, we do our own development system, and Becky's now learning how to become a mentor so that she can take on other Profit trainers and help them build their businesses. It's something that sort of sets us apart in the industry, is that every trainer gets a personal mentor. So Becki would be one of those mentors. Talk to us a little bit about why you went into that, Becki. What was it that attracted you to the idea of becoming a mentor?
I just like the idea of giving back. You end up mentoring without even realizing. Mentoring is the same as coaching a client. You're just coaching another colleague. So it's just exactly the same, and you just get to help them. And the thing is, you've been through, like with a client, I've been through struggles of weight loss, and then like with a mentee, I guess, I've been through the struggles of losing a client. I've been through the struggles of working all those hours, and it's kind of being able to help them not make the mistakes I did. So help them get to where I am in half the time. And if I can help somebody be really successful in their business, that's a huge thing. And I think the whole reason I've got into personal training is to make an impact on somebody else's life. So whether that be a general population or whether that be a colleague, it's what it's all about.
And what's because obviously you have a personal mentor within the team. What's your experience been like as you've been mentored? How have you found that as someone on the receiving end of mentorship? How have you sort of used it to your advantage? What's been most valuable for you?
I think just having somebody there, like, who's been through it, somebody you can, half the time, I literally just go into mentor sessions and I'm just like, bleh. And then Marcus is like, right, yep. And I think sometimes that's all you need. You need somebody who understands it, who's been there, who can ask the right questions and can give you the support and the advice that you need. Sometimes the mentor sessions I have are so valuable. I get loads from it. Other times it's just there for somebody to check up on you and say, how's everything going? Yeah, it's great. Have a coffee, have a chat. But sometimes you have that, and you didn't realize how much you needed it until you go, oh, didn't really need that. And then before you know it, you've just gone, blah, and it really, really helps just having somebody check up on you and your business.
Yeah, sometimes it's just having that sounding board, isn't it? Even if it's just to check, you've got ideas and things like, what do you think of this? But someone who can apply it to you based on knowing you personally.
And I guess it is the accountability as well, because sometimes you can just slack off with it, whether it be in education or training or whatever. And then if like, how's education? Like, what you learn anything at the moment? You're like, and then he's like, right, let's do this. And then you just crack on again. Sometimes you just need to kick up the bum.
Yep. So you've told us a little bit about what your business looks like now, and you've alluded to the fact that obviously it didn't always look that way. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things you potentially struggled with along the way. Like, what were some of the bumps in the road? What were the bits that you had to overcome, or little challenges or anything like that? Are there any that stick out for you?
I think there always will be, really. Obviously with PT, it's kind of, you're self-employed, so there are obviously the positives outweigh the negatives, but there are some negatives to it. So holidays and stuff I find quite difficult, and the inconsistency of some months, because obviously we are a luxury to people. So if something happens in their life, like they could stop PT, and sometimes it just all seems to happen at once. So you end up kind of having a big dip in your business, and because it all relies on you, it's your business, and sometimes I end up taking that personally. So if this month isn't very successful, I sometimes end up taking that like personal, like, oh well, this isn't going well for me. So I think I still do struggle with that occasionally, because that's the part of with personal training. You do have your months which can be better and worse, and sometimes it is kind of out of your control with what happens with your clients.
Yeah. And putting a bit of a positive spin on that, like I always like to do, is that I think that if someone does take it personally, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it just means that you care. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't want them to leave me. So.
No, it should bother you that people leave and things like that. Like when PT say they don't care, I'm like, well, you're probably in the wrong industry. So they like to put all the blame on the clients and things like that. Whereas we know it's up to us. You know, we've got to pick ourselves up then and go again and keep building, keep growing, learn, and stuff
the
like
best
that.
thing about there's always people that need help.
Yeah.
Everybody needs PT. There's always people that need help.
Yeah.
So it's never ending, especially being able to work in a total fitness with that many members out there that we can help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in one of the recent podcasts, I talked about how in our industry now there are 10 million people that own a gym membership. So if you put that into perspective, I think there's about 13,000 PTs in the UK versus 10 million gym members. So that as a number is ridiculous. No. All it requires is that you keep growing and keep becoming better. So on that note, a couple of things you've mentioned already. You mentioned that when you were competing, you learned a lot. And you mentioned that when you were doing all these long hours and stuff like that, you got a lot of experience. So you've clearly gone through a period of like working with a lot of people, educating yourself. What else do you think it takes to be an excellent personal trainer? Like, what are the key things for you that you believe you've had to improve to get better as a PT?
I think over the years, I've just got really good at creating relationships. So creating a relationship with your clients is one of the most important things that I always bang on about to people. Like, you need to be the person that turns up on time. You need to be the person that listens to them. You need to be enthusiastic in their sessions, whether it's the first one in the morning or the last one at night. You need to be happy to see them, and they need to be feeling better at the end of their hour. I think one of the things I value myself on most is my client care. So just looking after them and just listening and really actually caring what they've got to say. Obviously, you see some of them more than you see your family. So I do have a little family at work, which is lovely, as well as the people I work with. It's just checking up on them and actually giving a damn.
Yeah. And the client care stuff's really important. It's where we were going to move to next anyway, because when I was talking to other trainers about bringing you on the show, the one thing that everyone mentioned was Becki's fucking awesome with her clients. Like, people fall in love with her and they stay around for a long time. And so to you, it probably feels really, really easy. It probably just feels like something you do, but let's try and unpack it a little bit and give people maybe an idea of what it is you actually do that helps build those relationships. So
I was thinking about this because
go for it.
Obviously it's just my personality and that's just how I am.
Yep.
So I don't really know what I do, but like I said, it's just being enthusiastic. You just have to be really happy and make them happy, like better when they leave. So doing a lot of coaching on stuff like that and making sure, being adaptable, understanding a client's mood when they come in. Do they need to be absolutely smash that session, or do they just need a walk around the lap? Are you going to make them feel worse by giving them a weight that they can't lift, even though they did it the week before? So it's understanding where your client's coming from, being adaptable to them, enthusiastic, and remembering birthdays, remembering what they might have something on the Friday. Give them a text, and some of them are best friends.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah. I know something that a lot of trainers struggle with when they work with a lot of people like you do is obviously staying on top of everyone, like keeping track of where everyone's up to and stuff like that. Do you have any sort of systems around that you can share with people?
Not massively. I have got a client list.
Yep.
With bits on it. So, but because it's just how I am, I do think about this person and I give them a text. So I do have something on my computer with everybody's name and then bits that I fill in every week. So just a little bit about them, what they might have going on that week. But I genuinely do just remember that that's what they've got on, because if my brother had an interview, I'd remember. I'd give him a text. If one of my clients has an interview, I'll give them a text saying good luck. But that's just who I am. And I know a lot of people do have systems where they'll write that down.
Yep.
But if a client tells me in that session, it's my birthday next Wednesday, I'm like, okay, 2 seconds. I'm going to go and I write it in, because it's not acceptable to forget that, in my opinion. People don't forget my birthday. I get thousands of presents. It's great. So I don't want to forget theirs.
Yep.
It just means that you thought about them, and it's lovely getting a text. Just being, who are you? So.
Yeah, and it's not hard, is it? In this day and age, there's no excuse to not be in contact with your clients. It's fairly straightforward, and there's loads of ways you can be reminded of when these things are happening. You know,
Yeah.
whack it in your calendar. It's not hard. So when you do these things for your clients, it sounds like what you do is you do the basics really well and very consistently, which is massive. It's something that we teach at Profit. But then it also sounds like you deliver these little one-off wow moments here and there as well. Can you give us some examples of how you might have done that for clients over the last few years? Like any specific examples of stuff that you've done that maybe a client wasn't expecting or that really sort of took them by surprise?
Yeah, think about the market. One of them lost a lot of weight, and she always said if she lost this weight, she wants to go and get a belly button pierced. So I surprised her, took her, went and got a belly button pierced for her. Trying to think what else. Take people out for lunch, when obviously being able to free up this time means I can give my clients that I've got better quality. Yeah, they get more from it. So I can take them out for lunch when something's not going right at home, or even when something has gone right, we can go out for lunch and we can catch up that way. Just creates get better rapport with them. So yeah, just giving more time away, which is the kind of thing you try and get the time back, but you just invest it back into your clients.
Yeah, because if that's what you genuinely care about and you're passionate about, you will do that naturally anyway, won't you? Something I did mean to ask you earlier, Becki, in terms of taking that time back, how have you gone about doing that? Have you started implementing like a semi-private model now? Are you doing more like small groups? Or are you still just working with people one-to-one? It's just that you've condensed the diary down.
Yeah, well, obviously, as we go through the qualifications as well, we can increase our prices. That's helped with increasing revenue. And then I have sorted some semi-privates, not as much as I would like to, because I do like to work one-on-one with people, but I do understand that it can be more beneficial going semi-private. So I've got a couple, but at the moment, a lot of it is still one-to-one sessions, and then I've got my online.
Yeah.
But semi-private's definitely something I'm heading towards.
Yep, good. And with a mentor like Malpass, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. He'll be helping you out with that.
All the time. Who should we put together? I'm like,
He'll be forcing you to do it. So as everyone can hear there, obviously Becki's had a great journey and she's got a lot of success out of that now. And one of her sort of recent personal achievements was that you bought your first home with your boyfriend, which is obviously great to see. It's awesome to see people buying their first house at such a young age. Something that I find interesting about that is that in order to do that, you have to have a certain mindset around money and finance and being organized and things like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that in terms of what you've learned over the past few years about running a business and managing your finances and then using that to save up for a house? Like, just any thoughts or any sort of learnings around that area? Because I know it's something that personal trainers on a whole struggle with a little bit, and they need to get their heads around that a little bit more. And quite often the only way they learn is by fucking it up.
yeah. Lessons are from consequences. That's how it is. But I don't know with money really. I've never been like very systematic with it all, and I've never been really strict. But I'm not frivolous with money. And just think, if you're putting in the work, if you're delivering awesome sessions, if you're focusing on the process, the money's going to be there. And then just don't be an idiot with it. Really, just don't go back. Just live within your means. But not really expensive ones. And I was very fortunate to have been able to live with my mum and dad. So that's how I've been able to save the money. I haven't done anything extra special that I could really pass on tips to, but just don't be an idiot with spending money.
Yep. But I think the bit that's very easy to brush over there though, Becki, that you've actually clearly done a very good job of is, like you say, you just focus on the process of like building a business and looking after people. Like, if you focus on the basics and of just doing what you do really well, the money will take care of itself. And it's something that you probably, should be aware of, but don't have to be as like tight on and things like that. You can afford to just let that grow over time. I think some people are focusing too much on the money and not enough on the actual business and the service they're delivering. So that's quite an important thing that you mentioned there, that for a lot of people that'd be easy to just brush over. Obviously everything you've got now is built on the hard work, the dedication, the commitment, and the experience that you've built over time. In terms of where you're at now, you've obviously achieved a lot of great things at a young age, which is awesome. Where do you see the next few years for you? Like, what are you looking forward to? I know you're getting involved in the mentoring. Like, what's next for you? What else do you think you'll find yourself doing?
I'm not really sure, because I feel like I've literally just got to a place now where I've just bought a new home, going into mentorship. I feel like I've just done a lot, so I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So I do try and think too far in the future sometimes, that I'm a bit like, no, I need to focus on what's going on now.
Yeah.
But obviously I would like to do mentoring. I'd like to have my own mentees. I want to be able to feel that sense of reward from doing that with them. And then I don't really know other than that. I love what I'm doing at the moment. There's not really much I want to change. I work at Ideal Diary. I'd like to increase my online a little bit. And then just the mentorship over the next year. But I haven't really got any big goals yet, but I do want to set some new ones.
Yeah. And I think what's important there is obviously you're already working on some big things there. Like, becoming a mentor is huge. Like, that's massive. That is a huge undertaking. So that in itself, if you just focus on that and building that out, that will take up a big amount of time, energy and focus, especially if you want to be awesome at it, which I know you will be. So like, that in itself is a huge goal. For anyone out there that's listening now to this podcast that is a lot newer to this industry than you are, what advice would you be giving some brand new PTs that have only just qualified, or even just at the point of even thinking of becoming a PT? Like, what advice would you be giving new people in this industry now that you've got the benefit of experience?
Probably that you're just never going to have it all together. I think you just kind of wait to have it all together, and then there's something else happens. Like, you just have to, it's not going to all come together straight away. Be patient, be vulnerable, put yourself out there, put yourself into goals that you think you might not get, but you could do. Being vulnerable, go and put yourself on the gym floor, go and speak to people. It doesn't matter if you get rejected. And I think one of the most important things with gym floor is to look at it from a different perspective. So a lot of people hate going over to gym floor, and they hate going to talk to people. I think the big thing that people need to do is change a mindset shift on that. So you're not going out there to help your business. That's a byproduct. What we are doing is we need to look at it from who needs help out there. Because most people, 90% of the general population, need help. 99% of people in that gym need help. So if you think about a client that you have helped, you just imagine another one of them. They need you more than you need them. So go and think about it from their perspective. They need you, so go and help them, kind of thing. Just work more hours, be enthusiastic, enjoy it. It's a long process.
Yeah, it is one of those. It takes time, which is why you need to be passionate about it. Clearly you are, which is why it's got to where it's got to. In terms of the bit you've just talked about there with the gym floor, were there any times where you struggled with that? Was that something that you always found easy, or were there any times where that became tougher than it might have been previously? Like, talk to us a little bit about how you found it in terms of picking up clients.
Sorry, you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Sorry, did you miss that bit?
Yeah. And when I go, like, I still because it without knowing, it falls off. The habit falls off. So you all the time, and then you're falling before you know it. You stop speaking to people, then you're need to go into the gym floor, and that first person, you're like, oh, I still don't like it. But the more and more you do it again, after the first one, you feel fine going to the second one. And I think most PTs found it the same. It's easy to drop off, and then when you go and do it again, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have stopped. But it's just one of them. Again, it's a mistake you make, and you learn from it.
Yeah, it's easier just to keep doing it and keep it a habit where you can, even when you're busy.
Gym floor is character building in itself. It's just some things people say to you, and you just like, oh my god. But it's quite fun, really.
Just as a little side question that I've thought about, have you got any particular gym floor interaction that pops into your head that didn't go particularly well?
Not really, no. Sometimes you go over and they're like, no. And I'm like, I'm literally just coming to say hello.
Yeah.
I don't really have any bad ones now.
No, that's not too bad.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's it. I think sometimes we make it worse in our own head than it actually ever is. Like you say, the worst you get is a no, or a bugger off or something like that. It's not the end of the world, is it? No one's died. And probably not someone you're going to want to work with anyway. So at least you found that out very quickly. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good thing about being in the business for long as well, because you end up working with the clientele that you want to over time. the clientele that you get along with most, they end up sticking with you, and then the other ones kind of drop off, and that's just who you work well with. So you get to a point where I'm at now is the people that I work with are just like me, and you tend to have the same kind of personality traits as your clients once you've been there for a while.
Yeah. And I think then as well, that just builds on being able to make it easier to look after people better, because if they like you and things like that, you just buy into them more, don't you? It feels easier, it feels more natural.
Yeah, because sometimes I am quite enthusiastic, and I'm like, hi! And then with some people, like I've had, and they're like, why are you so happy in the morning? I'm like, okay. So some people you just end up getting along better with, and that's fine. That's just their personality.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's when I'm back to having to adapt to them, and then I'm like, right, okay, so they didn't like that first thing in the morning, and then adapting.
Yeah, you've got to meet them at their level, haven't you? But I think also as well, there's no problem in trying to bring them up a level. Like that's also part of our job. In the last interview that I did with Alex Lenkowski, when I asked him about his number one thing that he thought all PTs needed, if the first thing he said was energy, which actually surprised me from him, because he's quite a guy that bases himself on knowledge and experience and things like that. But even he said, no, you need energy. Like that's the first thing. That's number one. I was like, I was surprised to hear that. And it's the same for you. It's the same thing that's worked. So if you sat there listening to these podcasts, you should be noticing a theme. Bring the energy, bring the passion.
Enthusiastic. Yeah.
Especially because this is an area of life that people aren't always as energetic about. That's one of the reasons they come into you. They want to feed off your passion and energy. So it's important. Becki, we've covered everything I wanted to go through in a very short space of time there. We've done well. We've covered a lot of ground in not a huge amount of time, which is awesome for PTs, because the attention span can be horrendous, as we know ourselves. Before we do go though, tell people where they can find you online, because I know that you're awesome on your social media stuff. You've got a great following. You're very interactive and stuff like that. If people want to find you, where can they find you online? Where can they find out about you?
Instagram's the best, so it's just Becki Keegan on Instagram. BECKI Keegan, KWGAN. That's the best place to find me.
Yep. And what we'll do is in the show notes we'll put a link so that you can go straight to Becki's bio on there. You'll be able to find it, no problem. Make that easy for you. Before we finish off for today, Becki, are there any sort of final thoughts or anything that you want to share with the audience? Obviously, it's primarily PTs that are listening to this. Anything in particular that you want to share with them just to finish off with?
No, don't think so. Just enjoy it. Literally, there's nothing really more to it.
Yep, just enjoy it. Just be happy.
Yeah, just be happy. Have a sunny disposition.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today, Becki. It's been brilliant having you on.
Okay, thanks for having me.